Today we're going to talk about the biggest feature in the Summer 20 release notes, which is dynamic forms and also dynamic actions. So this is dynamic forms. It is in what they call, it's a new term, a non-GA preview, and it's only currently available for custom objects, not for standard objects. So there is a lot of information and help as to how to get started with dynamic forms. There is this Be an Innovator Trailhead module that has everything to do with how to design your page and set up your forms and all the other steps. So that will be an interesting trail mix to come back to as they add more features. There is also this interesting site called Salesforce Platform Demos, where you can go in here and open up the dynamic forms, and there's a separate one for dynamic actions, and deploy this directly into a Scratch org, or have a look at the code and have a look at some screenshots. So you can, and you can also sign up for a pre-release org and try it out there. There is this success group that you can come to and have a look at everything that's been added as they start talking about dynamic forms. And one of the interesting things here is that they're saying that standard objects will not be available within winter 21. So that's November 2020, and so we're looking at least a year away, if not more. I would expect more, for it available across your org. So that's really one thing you have to really consider when you enable dynamic forms. So this demo that I do will also be linked with a blog post on my wiki, and I've also already got some other content here which is about global and quick actions, which is what we've been using currently to get around the fact is that we don't have dynamic forms. And I'd already also done a talk at London's Calling about using the quick actions and related record components to really componentize your page layouts. So you can have a look at that and all the links will be in my wiki page. So dynamic forms first came in 2018 at TDX. It was first released then, and as in the idea of it, the saying it was coming, and it was named at that point Lightning Layouts, and it was then showcased at I believe New York user group, London user group, and I think also French Touch Streaming in that year. So this is the best video of it that exists in its earliest form, and this was by Eric Jacobson, done in May 2018. Interestingly, I was in this room just a few months earlier than this. It was dark and it was snowing outside. So really contrast to see this lovely view out over London without the snow. So we've known about this Lightning Layouts, this new feature, for about 2 years, and we know it was coming. But Eric did say in this video that they were still toying with the name. When the name is now settled, it's now Dynamic Forms. He did say in this video that it would not be a GA by Dreamforce. That was 2018. But if all goes well, it'll be pilot by Dreamforce 2018. So here we are now in May 2020, and it will be in non-GA preview in July 2020. An interesting comment from this video was, will we ever see this in our lifetime? And Eric assured the crowd that yes, we would see it in our lifetime. So we're seeing it in part at the moment. So it's in custom objects only, no standard objects, and it's sort of only half there, I would say. So I've got about a quarter of the feature currently in this, coming up in this release. So let's delve into it. I'm not going to show you exactly how to set it up and all the extra bits that you need to do to get it set up, but I want to set the scene first. This is a Scratch org that is on a pre-release org, so it is a Summer 20 Scratch org. So to do that, you can create a scratch org from setting your pre-release org as a dev hub, just as a technical detail that you can do this. And I've installed a very much modified version of the Dreamhouse app here, and I've played around with it. And this is a lot of work that I did to play around with my demo for my Japan Dreaming video, which I'll link on a card here. And then I've modified this even more. So some of the things that I've done on this page is some of the things that I have done for different clients over the last few years whilst we've been waiting for dynamic forms to come. This is the property object, and I've got it, it's got to look up to the account record for the local government area. Now, I wouldn't probably do this layout unless it was a master detail, but if we've got a master detail on the detail record, you usually want to see details of the master record first. So what I've got here is a related record component with a quick action behind it, an update layout, and which would show all of the details of the master record, all the key details of the master record. And then I've got, if you can hide that and just show you regular related list quick links if you want to. But sometimes it's really important to know the context of the record that you're on. Over here, I've got my indicators. So I've talked about indicators in my London's Calling talk extensively. And so the indicators will show here, and they change depending on the status of the record. So if I set this to be contracted, or sorry, set this to be available, then it's going to be have the house for sale sign coming up as an indicator. And if I set this status to be contracted, then it's going to have a handshaking symbol to show it's been contracted. So that's just a really nice way that you can quickly at a glance, when you've got thousands of records, quickly at a glance see what the details of this record are. And then I've got another related record component, quick action over here, with some really stuff that you want to be able to change quickly as the record goes through its stages. So at some point in time, before you go to the next stage, you want to update the pricing. This is what my Japan Dreaming talk was all about. So you want a quick way of updating the pricing. I've got some standard, there's some custom components that are part of the Dreamhouse app. And then I've got some really long text here, which I hate having long text on a standard form because it goes on forever and you really have to scroll. So what I prefer to do is to, if I just make this an extra screen up here, if I put a tag in here, what I prefer to do is take off the marketing description fields on the record detail form or the long text fields and put them over on the side so they can really take up as much space as they need to, and they're a little bit more out of the way, and they can be sort of hidden down below there. So, and then I would take them off the page layout. Unfortunately though, with the current page layouts, the way they work, if you wanted to clone this record, if it didn't have that field on the regular page layout, it would not copy that field across when you clone. So you would have to create, if you're breaking up your page to only have fields on related record components and not have fields on the page layout, then you will have to create a custom clone functionality with a flow or code. And then down the bottom, I've got another section, another related record component, which is fields that may or may not be there on the record. So in this case, I've just put the pictures there. If I take the pictures out of this record, then that related record component is not going to show. Okay, and sometimes I do put the related list quick links at the bottom and the top. Depends if the form is, if the page layout is very long or not. And in this page layout, if I was to remove the marketing description, wouldn't be very long, so I probably wouldn't put the related list quick links down the bottom. So let's just put that picture back in, and we can then see that that extra section at the bottom for extra fields is going to come up there. Now, in this demo, I've kept everything really on the one main tab. All of this stuff with the additional fields, of course, you can have them on different tabs. So here we've got a custom component on the different tab, but we can have our related record components on the different tabs also. So you can sort of do this old-fashioned idea of a wizard type thing where you go tab, 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 and have details. What you could also do on this page is have a flow that's sitting on the page, or a flow that is sitting on as a button. Okay, so that's just the basis of the setup and the record that we're going to be working with to show our custom, to show our dynamic forms. I've got this same page layout, very similar page layout, set up on the Sales app and on the Dreamhouse app. So basically exactly the same layout, but they have just a different button set up here, so I can just show, tell that they are the different page layouts. So these are two different Lightning pages using exactly the same page layout underneath, but they're just set up a little bit differently. And you can see here that that indicators is not showing correctly now because I haven't refreshed that, and I'd refresh that to show the correct indicators. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify this one Lightning page to have dynamic forms now, and we can go back and compare it with the current page layout at any time. So we're going to edit the page. And the first thing we can see after we enable dynamic forms is that we've got the fields section here and the fields here. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to click on the detail section. It's a really bit weird that this upgrade is over here rather than over here, but it's where you click into the detail section to get the upgrade now wizard. So we're going to click upgrade now, and we can say skip this next time because we're going to maybe probably do it for a couple of different page layouts. Now, when I did this for the first time, I checked this box, but I just don't think it's worth it. I don't like accordions because you can't just have one section collapsed. And I just don't think I just don't like the way it lays it out. So I'm going to uncheck that because it's just not useful to see that. So I'm going to choose the property layout. At the moment, I've only got one layout. Now, it's interesting that Eric Jacobson said in the London's Calling talk that, the idea where we create different record types and different page layouts for going through a series of stages and changing the page layout as we go through a series of stages, and we end up with 12, 15, 20, hundreds of record page layouts and record types just to be able to manage that process. He said that was like an unintended consequence of record types. So doing this dynamic forms will be able to us to get back to having record types for the real reason of having record types. So the idea is hopefully by the end of this you might be able to get rid of a whole heap of your maybe your record types and definitely hopefully your standard page layouts. So this is going to be good when we can really use it. So we've got the property layout that we're going to make our dynamic form for, and this is pretty good. It brings all the fields over as per your dynamic forms, and it shows you the record detail on the mobile. Now, I'm not going to cover the mobile on this video or in my blog post. That's a whole other area as to how the new mobile app works and how these dynamic forms will work with mobiles. Just know that the new mobile app on its own is a lot of work to set up, and then bringing this into it, setting up your Lightning forms is going to be a lot of work, and then ensuring that they work on mobile is going to be a lot of work on top of that. So just know that you've got a lot of work to set up. If you've got mobile stuff, you're going to really need to test it out. Okay, now there's some things here that we need to look at. So if we come over to this page here, we can see here that we've got the list price, and we've got a white space here, and we've got the discount field right next to the asking price. For me, that's really important that the fields line up very nicely, so that you, especially with complex formula calculations and complex financial calculations, that you can lay out the pages. Classic page layouts are very limited, and that by that having that very limitation are actually quite good in the fact is you know your limitations and you know what to work around with. So now we're getting less limitations with our page layouts, and we can sort of make a mess. So we've really got to be careful with that as we go into the Lightning layouts. But here, my discount has smushed up down here, and my asking price is now down here. And so I thought, okay, well, where's my blank space? There is no blank space. I can't drag and drop a blank space field onto this page layout. So for me, that's a definite issue, and something you're really going to have to think about. Is this going to be worthwhile for you, or can you rearrange your fields to make them not use blank spaces, or what are you going to do because you can't have blank spaces? And back in when we had page layouts in Classic, there was a really specific way that we would lay out our pages. There's a great blog post, which is this one on Shell Black's website, that was written around about the time that I started using Salesforce, and I absolutely subscribe to these rules and have always set up my page layouts in a very similar way. These on the left column, on the right column, this is what I do. And then I've got very specific things like money usually always goes in the right column, and the descriptive information goes in the left column. And system fields always go at the bottom, and there's all these rules around page layouts. Now, as we've moved to Lightning, it's been hard because we've got the compact layouts up here, and we've got the ability to add in extra sections. As to, do we then replicate the fields that are in our compact layout onto our page here? Now, compact layouts are so annoying because they are only differentiated by record type and not by profile. And so there's so many times where you either can't put a field on a page layout because it shouldn't be visible by that profile, or it's, so compact layouts are sort of just a really odd thing. And when Eric Jacobson came to Melbourne with the Lightning experience showcase a number of years ago, we really honed in and said, are you going to change this compact layouts to be visible by profile? And he said, absolutely no way, it's never going to happen. So it's just like, yeah, we've got to just put up with compact layouts. You can, of course, show the page with the compact layout collapsed, but then also one of the other things that they took away from us with the uses of compact layouts is that compact layouts now drive the hover. Previously, in Classic, the hover was driven by the hover panel that you could set up itself, but now it's only driven by the compact layout. So the hover has gotten very, 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 very limited. So that's why using the related record components to bring in further details from the hover has been really useful. I've even seen people write custom Lightning components just to put the hover details on the page, the related record details on the page, which is a bit overkill in my view when you can just do related record components. So as we build our page, we've got to understand, well, what can we change here? So maybe we don't need the record type, or maybe we don't need the system information here. Maybe we can get rid of the system information altogether. So I'm just going to do that for now. Okay, I'm going to get rid of that related list quick links, and I'm going to get rid of that marketing description, because actually what I want to do is delete that related record component and add marketing description on its own over here. So what we can do, which is great now, is add a section over here where we can make it a 1-column section where we put marketing description over here. And we can filter our list and put our marketing description over here. Okay, now notice that the page layouts, when we're working with page layouts inside of Lightning Flexi Pages, we can see the details of what is on the record, which we saw before when we had that marketing description visible. So this is the regular detail component and the regular related record component, where we can see the data in the fields as we're building our page, which is really useful to see that that field is going to take up so much extra space. But with dynamic forms, we can't see the record preview. So again, that is something that is really missing from dynamic forms. Hopefully it'll come later. I really do. I don't know. I have no idea. The other thing about this is that it really takes up a lot of white space. Like, what is the reason for it taking up so much space on this page? So, it's a tiny little thing, but it's just it doesn't look great, and it just doesn't look like Lightning. So it's it's a bit strange to me. Okay. Again, we can remove this section here and we can put our, it's interesting, the fields is filtered. The fields component is filtered. The field section is filtered whenever you filter something. That's just a bit weird. Okay, so we can do another field section here and we can add our main thumbnail and our main picture here. Okay, hopefully, again, we can't see the preview, so we don't know whether that will be visible. And again, we can set our filters on here to say picture is not equal to nothing. I'll also just remove this and put a field section here. Bring my indicators over here. So just as we're playing with this fields list, let's have a look at some of the really cool things about this fields list. So you've got the icons there that have got the different types of fields in there. So this is a pick list field. It looks like an image, but it's a pick list. We've got number fields, nothing separate for currencies. Now you can't filter by the type of field like you can in the reports list, but different to the reports list, you can hover over each field and see the API name of the field. So, oh my God, how good is that? And how good would that be in reports? We need that in reports. Now, with Lightning reports, how they're so much slower to build than classic reports were. What if let's just grab a new field section and we'll say here, this is tricky. This bit here is like, where do they expect me to put this insertion point? You can't add a field there. I keep getting around in here, add fields here. Okay, here's my insertion point. All right. So here, what you can do is you can bulk add fields. Now, again, I don't know what you do, whether you do that here or you can drag and drop, but you can drag and drop all of those. Oh, again, lost it. This is just tricky. There is some really tricky things with this. It's okay. Try this again. Drag and drop and add multiple fields there. So if haven't got too many fields on your list and you can see them all within one click, then to be able to drag and drop multiple fields onto the page is great. How good would that be in reports? So again, when one team in Salesforce are building something and another team in Salesforce has sort of already built something similar, which is a list of fields, why isn't it built exactly the same? And if one team in Salesforce can build something that is so much better than what the other team has built, because we're increasing features as we go along, why can't that go back to the other team and say, well, let's put this in your feature? So we need these features, these two features, the ability to select fields and drag and drop them onto the canvas at the same time, and the ability to see the API names on the fields in reports also. And in here, we need the ability to filter on date and currency type like we have on reports. Okay, I'll get back to that bit in a second. Now, we could add multiple fields onto the layout at once, but we cannot delete multiple fields at once. We can't multi-select fields here. We can't delete one panel at a time. We can only delete individual fields one at a time, or we can delete one section at a time. So now, you know the trick in report types, how report types are just so difficult to multi-select and delete multiple things. So what you might be able to do is, move fields into another section, move multiple fields into another section to then delete that section as a quick way of deleting multiple fields. So that's just a nice little trick. But again, I'm having just these little glitches with where to select things and where to, put things. So sometimes it's a little difficult, and hopefully that gets a little bit easier as we move along. Okay, so the next thing I want to do for my page is have my related record components. So here on the related record components, this has changed in this release, where we can choose the lookup field that the related record component is going to display for. So here is, this thing is new, so we can choose any one of our lookup fields. This is a new feature. This is lovely. You can now you can say the parent account of the account lookup field. So that's why this button is new. So this is a lovely new feature. So we can do related lookup components that are, if you've got a child of a parent, you can put the grandparent record on this page, which is a lovely feature. But we can't do that with related record components. There is no ability here to look up to any other records here to then drag and drop those fields onto this page. There's still no way of doing it. I just can't see another way of doing it. So that's a real limitation. So we're going to have our related record components on the page at the same time as we're going to have our dynamic forms on the page. And we'll get into a little bit as to why this might be an issue for us a bit. Now, with all this stuff we've done, we actually haven't viewed this page. So we've set this page up. Again, it's basically just the exact same page as we've previously had, except I deleted the system fields and added in a few extra standalone fields over here and at the bottom with different with conditional visibility. So let's save that now. Now this Lightning page is activated for the one app, and we can still use a standard page for our other app. So this is our first look at Lightning, our dynamic forms on this page. Now, it doesn't look bad. It's, it does the job. Now we've got, so I always get that wrong. So let's just have a look at our different display densities of comfy and compact. Now I only ever use compact. So again, it doesn't look bad. Now notice over here, our indicators don't look bad, our marketing details don't look bad. And you know, but we can see the difference between what our dynamic forms sections looks like and what our related record components look like. So the difference here might be a bit jarring to a few different users. Why is that different? Of course, this section can be changed to a dynamic layout, but this section can't be changed to a dynamic layout because it's the parent record. So is that going to be a bit jarring? So again, what I think you're going to have to do is really look at your layout of your pages and maybe only put related record components over on the side and group them together so that they don't seem as jarring as this sort of thing where you've got one heading here and one heading here. So let's go back to compact layout because we only ever use compact layout. And we start getting some issues here. So to me, this page looks different than what my compact layout looks like on my standard that I'm currently used to in Lightning. For a start, I can collapse sections in my standard page. I cannot collapse sections. Now again, that might not be a big issue because we can now hide and show sections. But having the ability to collapse sections is actually a really nice feature. And having people that can just only show that section when they want to is a really good feature. So there maybe as a workaround, you might do a bit of a panel that has some checkboxes where you can just show and hide different sections as you like, and maybe that's a way around it. Again, there is workarounds to a lot of these things. It's just whether you're going to spend the time in doing these workarounds or you're going to try and sell it to your users. If your users love being able to collapse sections, how are we going to sell it to the users that they now can't collapse the sections? The other thing is the heading is bigger. So again, your detail focused people like myself and the users that are very detail oriented might find that a bit jarring as they go through the app to see why is this heading bigger and it looks a little bit different than this heading. It's a little bit bolder, it's a little bit different. Then we've got the help icons. Why are these help icons nice and light and grey, and these help icons are very dark grey? Like, I don't understand that. So that comes from the Lightning design system. So this the standard in the Lightning design system is this darker grey. You know, this is a darker grey than the standard Salesforce help icon. So even if you build a Lightning component with a help icon, a field on there, the standard way of coding fields on Lightning web components, you get the dark help icons. So again, when you have got a standard form here with a standard help icon here, and you've got the dynamic forms here with a dark help icon here, again, a user's going to be a bit discombobulated by that. I certainly am. And then also, you can see here, the compact layout, the fields are a little taller here than they are here. Again, why is that? Again, if one department in Salesforce decides that the help icons should be dark, why isn't that across the whole of Salesforce that the help icons are dark? If one department in Salesforce decides that the compact layout field height should be this, then why is a new feature released with a compact layout field height different? And even these little help icons are a tiny fraction different. Again, this is the sort of detail that I look at and it grates on me all the time. So again, are you going to be able to sell that to your users? Is the benefit of the dynamic forms going to outweigh all these little grating things that may be annoying? I think it is, but it's just really something you need to understand and really need to be able to sell to your users. But one area that is probably not going to be able to sell to your users is this. See the compact layout here? The formatting takes the exact same formatting as the compact layout when it's in 2 columns. So when we have 1 column compact layout over here, 1 column layout with compact layout shown over here, it's still got the field label on the left hand side and then the body. So when you've got a very narrow layout here, there's just far too much white space taken up. So if we look at our related record component, it looks okay in that narrow section. Initially, when related record components came out in their very first release, they had this fault also. And it took some convincing to the product manager of the related record components to understand that. And they made the change that in a 1 column section, related record components show as a comfy layout. Now, that was a trade-off rather than showing it really badly like this. So again, that decision has already been made. That design decision has already been made by another team in Salesforce. So how does it not get through that this team building this feature didn't get that memo and didn't make that same design language come through to this feature? So again, that's just a little bit, feels like a lacking of attention to detail, maybe trying to get it out quickly. I don't know. I would really like to see that fixed, because right at the moment, I'm going to keep related record components on the side panels of my pages in my 1 column sections to be able to get over that. And the last thing we'll look at as far as the look and feel goes is this, the no blank fields. Again, my discount field should be down here, in line with here. So of course I try to work around, and of course I could create a field that was just a blank, like a formula field that displayed nothing, with a 1 character field label. Like I put a pipe, you might put a hyphen or something like that. I tried to put a non-breaking space, but that sort of had a major dummy split, which it should. And you could then drag that dummy field onto your page layouts to sort of work around the fact that there's no blank spaces. It's of course a hack, and this is the thing. It's going to be if those layouts are so important to require blank fields, then that is going to be really important for you. But what you might be able to do is do something, again, changing the layout of your pages so that you've got, just fields on the right hand side section, or something along those lines. It's going to be a bit of work to work out what's the paradigm, what's the best practices that we use for these new dynamic forms now. And we've got a bit of time before they're going to be useful throughout our org as to work that sort of stuff out. So it's very early days yet. We've got, there's going to be so many more things that we're going to work out what we can do with this new feature as we go along. Just while I'm playing with this form, let's have a look at a couple of other things. You can keep remove the section, the label from the heading, but it does not remove the section heading. It just makes it smaller, and that's a bit strange looking. So always make sure you put a section heading. And also, when you hit save, it does take longer than saving your Lightning pages now. So you're going to hit back a couple of times and it hasn't saved. So just give yourself that extra few seconds before you hit back. So here's that section with no heading, and it looks odd. Very, very, very odd. So always have a heading. I'd love to be able to have sections without headings, because I don't need a heading here and a heading here. So, and again, that's why I don't like my related record components, because I've got an icon and a heading and a heading. So it's just a bit too much. There's a bit too much graphical stuff on the page for me. So I'd much prefer to have just the fields over there without a heading, but this just looks a bit weird without the heading. So now let's get on to the real crux of what these dynamic forms can do for us and why they are going to be so good. And that is conditional rendering of individual fields or individual sections of forms. So I'm just going to play around with one field here, because once you see one, this is all going to be you doing trial and error as to how this is going to work for you. But where this is going to be really important is when you've created all of these different page layouts with different record types, where you're stepping through a process and you can hide and show sections of the pages based on the different statuses of the record. However, once you build something really great here, are people going to want that on cases and accounts and opportunities as soon as you release it out? So again, you're going to have to weigh that up. So let's set a conditional visibility here and only show this date listed when the status, there's always this bug here. Okay, so this is really hard to find the right field. No. When the status does not equal pre-market. We don't need a date listed if the status is pre-market. And probably we don't even need a broker if the status is pre-market. So again, when we've got two fields or more, are we going to want to put that in a different section rather than doing this? And just as a tip, when you're doing multiple fields, don't do multiple fields, because then you're going to do multiple fields on multiple field conditions on multiple fields, and then it's going to get really annoying to modify it. So create a field on your record to say, is broker visible, or is status to market, is to market maybe, and then you can set both of these fields with one field conditionally. Okay, so let's save that and see how that looks. See, again, I didn't wait that 1 second. We're so used to the timing it took before, and now it's going to take a little bit longer to save these pages. So here I've got my status as contracted, so my broker date listed and broker field are showing, and here I'm going to go to pre-market, and those two fields are not showing. So as soon as I change my, you can see my indicators have changed also. As soon as I change my field to contracted, the broker and date listed fields are going to show up there. Now, is that a little bit disconcerting that they showed up above that field? Again, that's going to be how your users work. For me, it would be better that they showed up below and to the right of those fields. And again, you can't do that because you haven't got any blank spaces. But did you see the factors that they showed up as we're editing the record? I go to pre-market, I go to contracted, and they show up as we're editing the record. So that it is just amazing and so good. Now let's just change that once again. And we'll make that date listed field required also. So you can make the field read only also, but setting things as read only is difficult as a system administrator. So you've got to be able to log in as another user to try that out. So we won't do that in this video. Okay, so we've got our pre-market. So now if I change that value from pre-market to contracted, both those fields are now shown and that field is now required. So this is just so game changing that we can have required fields that display based on another field changing. So we can build in that when we've had previously a page layout, just because some fields are required, or a validation rule just because some fields are required only at a different stage, we can now build that into our pages if it's a custom object. But most likely we are going to want that functionality on our cases and opportunities and our accounts. And are you users going to be able to cope with that, having different functionality on your custom objects than on your accounts and opportunities and cases? So, this is great. So let's fill in those details and we will save that, and those fields are now there. And if we go back to pre-market, the fields are gone, but the value is still there. Now, how can we see that? We'll use our wonderful Salesforce Inspector Chrome extension, and we look at broker, and we can see that the value is still there. Okay, if you don't have Salesforce Inspector, get it. It's really fabulous. So now let's look at editing the record as a whole. So obviously we know that we can click edit, and it pops up the edit page over the layout, and now we can click edit for a full edit page experience. Now, some things to note here. Again, if we change it from pre-market to contracted, our fields are going to come up there. That is, really amazingly fantastic. That's coming up there. But again, our layout is a little weird. And then the other thing that is different when we click the full edit page is every single section that you have on your page, every single field section that you have on your page is going to come up on the edit page. Okay, so that's another section thing to be aware of. So our main picture here is coming up here, and if we delete this, we can see here that section doesn't disappear, but that's the conditionality is that whole section disappears when that picture is not there. So that's actually a good thing to know, that the conditionality as you're editing things will only function on individual fields. Sections won't disappear if you fill your criteria makes them disappear. Okay. And here we've got the full marketing details here again with that weird thing where it's because it's one column, and we've got a compact layout where it's the field has taken up far too much of the space. Just know that. So this might work. This might drive which places you put your field sections on your page. So you're going to really have to play with it, because will it make this edit section not useful? So what you're going to know then, if you do your fields in tabs, like you're doing a little wizard type thing in different tabs across the page, then know that each one of these field sections is going to come on this edit page down the page for each tab. So so that is going to maybe a little bit different. So let's just remove that picture now and save that, so we can see that whole section disappears, right? And if we go back to edit, we can see that whole section has disappeared. But adding that back in, again, the whole section won't appear until we hit save. Okay, so that's a nice sort of built-in thing that is going to mean that whole sections won't disappear because you've modified a field. Now, the other amazing thing that you can have with dynamic forms, and of course with related record components, is the ability to have the one field in two different places on the page. So that is, it is a game changer. Sometimes you just need the one field in two different places. Now, wouldn't it be great to have the one field in two different places on a report though? That'd be cool. So let's put the date listed over here also, because often I do a component that sort of sits over in this page section of the page, which is like a quick update, which is the latest update. What is the latest update of this record? And it might have just a text field and a date and anything that just is the really quick latest thing that they need to look at in the right hand side section. So always put things over in that top right hand corner that is just the really important next things to look at. So here we've got the date listed over here and the date listed here. So let's have a look at when we edit the page. We can see if we delete that value and it's required, we have to, of course, we have to put it in here. It doesn't show up as required there. See it says date listed there without the icon and date listed here with the icon. We haven't set that as required over here. Okay, so does that mean that we could try and bypass that required field requirement section and just edit it over here and not have to fill that in? So let's just try, and I hit save, and of course it's not going to let me because we're actually saving the whole page. You're not just saving that one related record component. Okay, but here on this related record component, if I put the date listed here and didn't put a requirement on here, I could, let's see what that would do. So with a related record component, I can edit and save that one section only. So again, it might still be useful to have related record components or even custom lightning components to be able to just save, edit and save that one section only. Now I can then edit this one section only and make that field not required because it is not required here. But of course, as soon as I go and edit anything else on the page, that field is going to be required again. So just it's a little trick or gotcha, whichever way you're going to use it to your benefit. But just know that the related record component behaves a little bit differently than having the field in multiple places on your dynamic form components. Okay, so again, dynamic forms, if I hit save, no matter where that field is on the page, if it's required in one section, it's going to be required in all sections, even though there isn't a required indicator there. So I think that's good. But the bottom line is going to be, will the users cope with having different look and different functionality between the custom objects and your standard objects? Will they be complaining that why isn't this great new functionality that is in their custom objects not on their standard objects? Are you still going to have to manage your page layouts because you've still got users on the standard page layouts? Now, I've played around with the standard page layouts and I've, thought, can we actually just get rid of all of the fields? Like, we don't quite know until the help documents come out. We don't quite know like what is the page layout or the record types or anything going to be used for going forward. We still know that the related lists are controlled by the page layout, but could we actually cut down our page layout to have no fields on it? Would that work? Like there is now a minimal profile in Summit 20, would it be good to have like a minimal page layout and just assign that wherever you've got these custom forms? Before we wrap this up, let's have a look at dynamic buttons. So dynamic buttons enabled is the very first time since about was it 2012, 2013, where they didn't allow you to have JavaScript on Classic, where that thing where you could hide JavaScript in the side panel on Classic, and that could display and hide buttons. And then they stopped that. And this is the first time since then we have been able to have conditional buttons. This is a game changer. However, it's also still a little bit limiting. So let's have a look. So how do we get buttons? We come up to our highlights panel component and we say enable dynamic actions beta desktop only. Okay, so then our standard buttons and actions from our standard page layout are removed, and we had to add each of our actions on their own. So we've got here all of just the standard actions. So of course you're going to need edit. Okay, and then done. And then we go, of course, you're going to need maybe change record type. You don't need change record type because you've got change record type when you add record type to the page. Actually, let's have a look at that, make sure that that actually does work. Record type. Okay, so this is tedious. This is going to be tedious and going to be a little bit of setup of work to get all of these buttons on here. Of course, you're going to want delete. So you're going to have to rebuild all of your standard buttons. There is no convert functionality like there is with your page layouts. So if you've got a lot of buttons, you know, this is going to take a little bit of setup, but I think the setup is worth it. So we've got our quick actions and our global actions here. So we'll just do, we can do quick update pricing. We'll do update pricing. So our update pricing is our related record component, which is also a quick action. We'll do that there, and we'll set our visible action buttons to say for 2. So we've got edit and change record types. It's going to be there, and we can uncheck hide follow button. This is just going to be dependent upon whether your users use this functionality of following records, which is a really useful feature as to whether you're going to hide or not, hide that or not. So we've got those actions there, and we can hit save, and then our actions and buttons work exactly the same way. Oh, see, again, it's a little slower. They work exactly the same way as they do now. So we've got edit, we've got change record type, we've got our delete and our update pricing, and our update pricing just brings up that related record, that quick action in a modal, which might be a nice way of doing it rather than having it on the page, especially now with the conditional buttons. How good is that? Okay, so one of the things that you may use buttons for a lot is if you have a tool like Conga, where everything is controlled by buttons. Now Conga does have a lightning component. I have not been able to get it working, so still I've got all of the buttons set up. So let's just do a new button. And Conga buttons are really just a URL. So let's just call a button, and we'll just do it as a detail page button, and we'll just do go out to another. Now, we don't have to worry about this custom button will not be displayed to users until you add it to the page layout. Well, we do. We're adding it to the lightning layout now. So let's add that to make sure that we can use buttons. And here's our button, which is under a custom action. Okay, and we've got our button, and again, that's just a little slower. And we've got our button, and that opens up Google. Okay, so that is great. We've got buttons. So one thing I just want to try is if we changed it to a detail page link. Does that still work? And we've got that there. Now that's going to be important because we don't have the ability to have, you know, the detail page links that are at the bottom of the page. We don't have those ability to have there. And I do a lot of reports that are usually done as detail page links. So that's going to be useful to have those buttons that are detail page links coming up as conditional buttons then. So that's a detail page link. So we wouldn't want to have update pricing available when the status is pre-market. It doesn't make sense because we don't have any pricing. So therefore, we can see here the little visibility icon comes up there just before the name. So if they can do that there, why can't they do that here and have custom visibility on tabs? Let's have that next, please. We really need that next. Okay, so let's just have a look at that custom visibility. It works exactly the same way as the fields. So if we set that to be the status of contracted, I've obviously set that wrong, so let's do pre-market. Yeah, I completely said it wrong. Should say where it doesn't equal, but you get the point. So the button comes up there. What you can't do with the custom buttons, it's a little bit limiting, but not a deal breaker. This is something you're gonna start using straight away. But again, users are going to ask for it on accounts. So some of the other limitations are that you can't conditionally change how many buttons are visible. That would be nice. But if you only had, if you set that to 10 and you only had the buttons available and then only had the other ones come up as they are required, then the buttons will display as they are required. So let's just fix that one. So status does not equal pre-market. And we've got all of our buttons showing now. So this just depends, again, how much work and effort you're going to be putting into showing these buttons. Of course, I want this feature on accounts, cases, and opportunities. So yeah, it's contracted, update pricing is there. If it's pre-market, update pricing goes away. And that's a really nice thing. So be able to have, based on the stage, if it's contracted, then your Conga document comes up. To run your Conga document, that is just going to be just such a game changer. That is fabulous. So even if you're not quite ready to do the full page layouts yet, you might do custom buttons first. So one of the last things we need to look at is cloning. Now, remember in my sales app, if I decided to delete the page layout and delete that marketing section from my page layout, so delete that marketing description, and if I decide to just have that marketing description over there and I go clone, the marketing description is not on my cloned record. So let's call that clone 2. My marketing description is blank. So that's a real issue because it removes the data integrity that your users are expecting. When you clone a record, you expect to have everything, every single field of that record cloned. So let's set up something similar here, where we're just not going to have the marketing description on the page at all. So we've deleted the marketing description from the page layout altogether, but we can just double check our data is there. Okay, so it's there by using our beautiful Salesforce inspector extension. And then we're going to clone this one and we can't see it there. We should actually call this a different name so we know that it's been cloned. And we'll go to show all data and we'll look for our marketing description there, and it's not there. Okay, because that's because we removed the marketing description from the page. So it's very similar to the standard functionality. If the field is not on the page layout, it won't be on the clone. Okay, but now what we'll be able to do, we'll go back to our main record. We'll be able to go back to our main record. We'll be able to add in a section that is maybe never visible. So we'll make the whole section only ever visible where the property name, when I show it when the property name is equal to blank. Okay. And we'll put our marketing description in there. Okay, so this is where we can hide fields away and have them either only ever shown via a particular permission set or a particular profile. So you might have like a show system fields permission set, which you only give to key people, and they can only see those details. So we can see here that marketing description is not visible. We'll double check our field again. Marketing is there. Okay, so now we're going to clone this record again. Call it number 5. And we'll just double check. And our marketing description is there, even though it's still not on the page. So again, this is the game changer. No more having to have a completely separate clone button that's customized by a flow or code to be able to clone a record to have full field integrity. You'll be able to put those fields on the page layout, hide them so that no one ever sees them, and the record will be cloned in full if you've got all of those fields on the page layout. So now down to the bottom line. Are you going to use this? I'd say yes, probably conditional buttons. Use those. They're pretty good. I would say really think about, is it going to be too disconcerting to your users to have this new functionality where there is not the same functionality on their standard objects? You might want to just give it to administrators or on a particular app as a pilot group first and see how they handle it. But maybe there's another way. Maybe you could have, say, the details page as the standard detail, but like standard detail component now, and have like a key details or a processing tab where you've got the dynamic form components on there. There's actually nothing stopping you from having the page layout still remaining and having these dynamic form sections on the same page. Now, of course, you've got to be very careful with, are you putting too much on the page and the page load times become slow, especially if someone doesn't have good internet connection. And of course, you've got to weigh up how things look on mobile and all that sort of stuff, but that might be a way of going. So just have your key sort of features that need to be done by conditional visibility on like a processing tab first, and then keep your key details on the on another details tab. Because you're still going to, if you move across at the moment, you're going to have to probably still manage all of your fields and all your page layouts in two places once. This is not just wipe away all your page layouts first and start again. I don't think we're at that stage yet. And then there is how are we going to lay out these pages? How are we going to make them look good? You can make these pages look really bad. Let's quickly do an example. As we said before, the page layouts in Classic are so limited that they're actually, good in that way. You can't do much bad with them, except try and put an inline Visual Force section in the page, which looks terrible. So let's put this, say if I wanted to see, I've got the LGA field here, and say if I wanted the LGA details to display below there. And say I wanted a flow on the page also. I've got a flow here that looks probably pretty ugly. I'll put that down a bit further so we can just see the different sections. So this looks a bit bizarre. So I've got my information heading, and then halfway down I've got an icon and a heading, but no border. And I've got no differentiation between the detail section and the related record component. So don't do this. This is just messing with the heads of your users. And here I've got a detail section, and then I've got a screen flow right below it. Again, there's not enough visual differentiation between the records and the flow, and there's this finish button right in the middle of the page that just is like, what is that sitting there for? Okay, so this is the sort of thing you don't want to do. Okay, so there's going to be this trial and error. What makes a good page? And I think this the trail mix that they're coming out with at the moment, they're going to, it looks like by their comments, their contents, that they're going to address that. So, and just like every single new feature, we're going to have to come up with some best practices. We want a blog post like Shell Black's from 2011 to say, this is the best practices for how we use dynamic forms. So I still think we're still a long way from that at the moment. We're going to have, lots of ways that we can do things. I know the way I may lay out my pages is probably not best practice. It's a bit functional, but I want to help Salesforce admins work out what those best practices are and how it's best to lay out these pages. So I think we've got a bit more work to do there. So as this is very early days, and as we see what comes up in the chat group in the Trailblazer community group for this new feature, what comes out in the release readiness videos, that's always a great place to find out how the new features work. That's going to be really interesting to see what more information have we got there. This is not done by a long shot, and I might have to do another updated video at some point in the future as these new details emerge. But yeah, have a play with it, and maybe just sort of think about how you are going to use it in your org, rather than just thinking, this is the best thing since sliced bread, I have got to put it in my org, I've got to give it to every single person, I've got to destroy all my page layouts, I've got to just use this from here on in for everything. I'd say just step a little bit slowly with it. But there is some really good features to this new feature. Hopefully that will help you understand how you're going to use And I'd love to hear some more details in the comments as to how you are going to use them in your org moving forward.